culturally responsive. You are also getting a notice that the meeting is being recorded, so please hit that so we can get going. So here's, oh, I forgot to change my agenda slide. Doggone it, you do everything right, and then there's always one thing. So let's lean into mistakes for a little bit today. So this is the agenda. We're going to do a check-in. I have a general acknowledgement that we'll share together. And then we'll talk about our hopes for this session, and we'll really get into that culturally responsive practices that you're here for. And then we'll have a little moment for reflection, and then we'll be out. We do have a survey at the end that we're really asking you to fill out, because that is how math improves their practices. So to get started, I want to start with this feelings mood meter from Dr. Mark Brackett from the Permission to Feel resource. And what I want to ask you to do is, I just want you to check in. I'm not asking you to shift. I'm not asking you to change, but I want to know the color. Using the chat, I want you to just type the color that represents how you're feeling as you come into this experience this morning. So if you're feeling restless or nervous or angry or frightened, you would type red. If you are feeling pleasant or joyful or happy or any of these words over here, you would type yellow. If green or blue. And so I'm not asking anyone to change. I'm just asking you to acknowledge where you are. All right, so we got some green, red, green. All right, green and red. Okay, morning, green. Okay, we got blue, green and yellow, red. All right. And so thank you for that. Thank y'all for sharing that in the chat. For those of you who are who's not muted? That I need to mute. Where's that? For those of you who desire to shift prior to us getting started, I'm going to ask that you do what you need to do to shift, right? I'm not asking you to shift, but if you desire to shift into a different color zone or space, please do what you need to do, whether that's get a beverage or get, find a fuzzy, a fiddle, a fidget, whatever those things are, okay? I'm going to drink some coffee because I am teetering between very nervous and I'm very excited at the same time. So thank you. This is a tool that you all can use in your programs to just ask young people where they're at, right? He has a book called Permission to Feel, and he really goes deep about how we really have been disconnected from all of the numerous amount of feelings that we can have, and how just asking a question, how do you feel, can really change like the content of your relationship, how the depth of your relationship, because just asking that question sometimes gives young people space, and people, right? Not just young people space to open up and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And I'm okay with that, right? Or I'm feeling frustrated, but I'd really like to be content, right? And so then we can develop strategies to move when we desire to move, okay? But we don't ever ask anybody to shift for us, right? Because that is not culturally responsive practice, okay? Anything we ask people to do for us is not culturally responsive, right? That's hierarchy, okay? So just remember that. I am your facilitator. If this is your first time being in a session with me, can you give me some kind of feedback or raise hands? Okay, Stacy with an E. All right, Katie. All right. Okay, there's a bunch. Okay, so that just determines how far deep I go into my introduction. So thank y'all so much for sharing that. So for those of you who've never met me before, my name is Stacy Salters Jackson, and I was formerly an out of school. I'm an original 1980s latchkey kid. That means I spent my whole life in out of school time programs, right? So from 1980, when I was old enough to walk home from school to go to school by myself or whatever, my mother worked, so I always engaged in after school programs and before school program. My mother worked 6 to 3. So we would get up at 5. I would get dropped off at the daycare. I would leave the daycare, go to school. I would come back to the daycare from school, And then my mom would pick me up when she got home from work. So when I say like this is my life, like this is my life, right? And I know what people did to make me feel like I didn't belong. And so when I get to really get an opportunity to talk about culturally responsive practices and then engaging with people in the way that they need to be engaged with, it's really uplifting for me. I have 2 adult children, and all of their friends pretty much live with us, and 3 grandchildren. Um, they are my job. They are my joy, right? They're my whole life, and so my intent in this is to make sure that spaces are welcoming to them because they're all 3 of my grandchildren are mixed race, and so it's important to me that, and one has a Black father and one has, and 2 have a white father. And so it's important to me that their experiences are have slight variations as they move forward. So working with people who are working out of school time is really a critical part of the work that I do. I have 7 years of school after school program experience. I coordinated a program with 100 youth Monday through Thursday for about 6 years, and I coordinated summer programs for between 100 and 300 youth for 6 or 7 years. And so again, for those of you who are like, who is she and why is she talking to us? This is why, right? And I don't know everything. I became an out of school program development coach with Kalamazoo Youth Development Network. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they're part of the network of out of school time serving intermediaries. And I currently serve on 5 youth serving organizations, the boards for 5 youth serving organizations. And then the president of Girls on the Run of Greater Kalamazoo, the board chair. So again, this is my life, right? And so again, what I share with you today comes from my experiences. For those of you who want to know the professional part of me, I give air quotes around, is that I have a degree in accounting. Things always have to add up for me. And I have all these certifications to make people feel like I know what I'm talking about, because I recognize how the impact of that. And finally, I am a certified Colby consultant, and Colby has a tool for youth to really lean into our, and adults to lean into our instinctual ways of being, our instinctual strengths. And so if anybody wants to talk to me about that later, they can do that too. And finally, certified nonprofit consultant, because professional, because that's the work that I do in the other time that I'm not doing these things. Any questions about me before I get started? From what I shared on this slide, do you have anything in common with me? Can you say that you have anything in common with me based on what I shared this morning? Stacy? Yeah, we have the same name. And I
We have the same name, but I have kids too, but they're a little younger. They're high school and middle school.
Okay, thank you. And I rebelled in middle school and put an E in my name, and then I had to take it out. So it's funny. I've been a latchkey kid, Dave. Thank you, David. Thank you for sharing that. Right? What else do we have in common? Anybody? CNP. Oh, Faye, you got a CNP credential? Let's talk about that. Call me later. My mom worked, right? And so just in the 10 minutes that we've been here, right? I've really made myself available for almost everybody in this space to find, oh, you got your master's in urban. Okay. I'm getting distracted by the chat. We all able to find something in common with each other, right? In less than 10 minutes, right? And so that's that place of being culturally responsive, right? So being able to find something in common gives us something to talk about, right? And not saying you need to be this, you need to be that, right? But what are you bringing into the space? You have 2 kids, a son who's 19, and a daughter, due in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry, I get really excited about the chat. And when people are sharing. My children are 31 and 26, right? And so recognizing that the way in which I operated out of school time, right? Anytime they were with me was with out of school time, right? Like as a parent. And so we got to recognize that and use that as a connection to our families, right? Like anytime they're with you is out of school time. And so that's why you also could be doing these things with them at home, right? So thank you for that. Thank you for engaging. And as we go through this presentation, I'm going to always be coming back like, this is a strategy you can use, right? How much do the young people know about you in the spaces that you supervise, right? How much does your staff know about you, right? I remember my staff recognized that I could rap. E40, they was like, what, Miss Stacy, like you it, like you, that's it, right? And that wasn't something that I was like normally going to do, right? But I recognized that I needed to connect with them in a way, right? So then that can build trust with them, right? Because again, those experiences, those shared experiences give us opportunities to say, oh, wow, we like the same thing. So da 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 da, right? So we can engage better. Here is a general acknowledgement I like to share before I get started, because I just want to recognize, just like with that mood meter at the beginning, everybody is going through something in this world, in this country, in this state, in this municipality, in this household, in this room, in this chair, and y'all are here. And so I'm so thankful for that, right? And so just even making space for young people and people to recognize, like, hey, I know you got a lot going on and you could have chosen to be anywhere else right now, right? Because we all have choices and you're here. And so I'm just really grateful for that. And so I just like to start with a general acknowledgement, because a lot has happened to bring each of us to this very moment. And if we don't start off by honoring all that has happened to get us to this very moment, it's more likely that we'll have less appreciation for what we experience, right? Because we recognize that this moment becomes a piece of history, a piece of legacy, where you can say, hey, I went to this thing, I met these people, I learned these things, I experienced this, right? And so it sticks with us. And it's important to reflect on that even with your young people, right? Because again, things happened the day before and they still showed up today with your staff and all the people that you engage with, okay? Next, I have a slide here and it has 5 pictures on it. I'm going to describe the 5 pictures for reasons of accessibility. And I'm going to ask you some questions about the pictures in just a moment. So the first picture is a picture of, it looks like a picture that someone took looking out of an airplane window. The second picture is a person standing on a rock, like wedged between 2 mountains, it looks like. The third picture is a person with tattoos on their arms and making a hand signal. The third picture is a rocking chair sitting in a quiet room. It looks like there's an air diffuser there. And the fifth picture is a beach with a gazebo like in the water in front of the sunset. So which picture on the screen, you can drop in the chat, represents what you'd rather be doing right now? Beach always. Airplane, beach, beach, beach. Hiking. It's a lot of folks that go into the beach, flying to the Netherlands with, okay, go across the world, Lisa. Flying, traveling. No one wants to be sitting at home like me? Okay, it's okay. No pressure. All right. For those of you who said that you'd rather be doing something, which one that you'd rather be doing? Oh, thank you, Izzy. Will somebody come off mute and share why they'd rather be doing the other thing, or what they'd rather be doing? Home, Lori. Thank you. Y'all not gonna talk to me today? It's okay. Just in the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
I'd rather be at the beach because it's warm and it's freezing cold here.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Was that Michelle? Who was that?
Michelle.
Oh, hi, Michelle. Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Anybody else want to share? No.
I chose number one because I've been to over 24 countries around the world, and I just love traveling.
Yes, you love traveling. Now, do you love the airport experience or do you love traveling? Like, what part of it do you love?
I don't mind the airport experience. I've done it so much that it's just kind of routine. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And so you see how that, right? So like I enjoy traveling, right? In the airplane. It breaks down other experiences. You sit in first class. Do you have how many times have you been in first class? How many do you use a middle seat? Do you use a window seat? Right? Like those are all, it's an opportunity to build relation and conversation, right? Just by asking somebody something about what they would do. Tiffany says, I would love to be somewhere warm and relaxing with no worries. You wouldn't be worried about like the weather and stuff, Tiffany? Right? Like I think, oh, no? Okay, awesome. So just thinking about, right, the depth, we can continue to ask questions, right? We can continue to be like, oh, tell me more about that. The beach is warm and relaxing. I love the beach when I'm by myself, right? The beach is not relaxing when I take my grandchildren, right? Like that's a different experience. And so sometimes you got to say like, well, I thought you said you love the beach, right? And so then you just can again bring back that reflection and that memory, right, of that experience with somebody. Love feeling the sand between my toes and listening to the waves. Yeah, that's my thing. Like I just want to be by myself. I don't want no kids around. Like I need to. I'm at that point in my life now, and that's okay, right? It's just an opportunity. The next question I'm going to ask about these pictures is I'm going to ask you. I'm going to open up some breakout rooms. This is funny, and and each of the rooms describes the picture. So each of the breakout rooms, you'll be able to pick which room you go into. But the task in the room is to go into the room and come out with a song that represents the room that you went in. So you might have three or four people in your room, right? And y'all might have different ideas as to what the song should be, but I want y'all to come back and we're going to have 5 minutes to do this. I want y'all to come back and share a song that represents that picture. Okay. Does everybody understand what we're doing? All right, here we go. Now, if one room gets heavier, like than the other rooms, I'm gonna have to move some of y'all over, okay? So I asked about that beach thing because I think I might need to make two, but we'll see what happens. You will be able to pick which room you go into. And if you need support getting into your breakout room, please come off mute and let us know which room you'd like to go in. The rooms are open. You should be able to pick now which room you want to go into. I should have said that. Introduce yourselves.
We had we had a couple of them. It was really hard to pick. I would say "Come Fly with Me" by Frank Sinatra, 1958.
Okay.
But yeah, we had a handful of them actually.
Yeah. All right. Standing Between the Rocks. What was your song? All right. I can call on somebody if I need to, but we know that.
We said The Floor is Lava, like the kids song.
Oh, The Floor is Lava. Yeah. Okay. The kids song. All right. What about the tattoo guy person? Where'd y'all go? All right.
We had two different songs.
Okay, it's okay.
We picked Beastie Boys' "Fight for Your Right to Party," and we were kind of in between Rage Against the Machines, Guerrilla Radio, or Bulls on Parade.
That's nice. And what was the last one?
Bulls on Parade.
Can you drop that in the chat for me? I'm trying to write these down, but I don't never heard of that one. All right, the rocking chair picture. Who had that? Who's going to speak for that group?
We went with Lazy Song by Bruno Mars.
Okay. Thank you. And then finally, the beach one.
We talked about a lot of songs. There was actually quite a few songs that go with this picture, but we ended up right at the last minute picking Kokomo by the Beach Boys, 1988.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Does somebody have a song that they just like? I wish the group would have voted for my song because I think this is the best song in the universe that goes with one of these pictures. Anybody want to share?
How about John Denver's Fly Away?
Fly Away. Okay. Yeah. What about anybody else?
Yeah, when I saw the chair, I thought of Luther Vandross' Home.
Yes. Because a chair is still a chair, right? Even when nobody is sitting there, right? Yeah. Anybody else?
I thought Paradise City by Guns N' Roses for the beach one.
Okay. So again, thank y'all for engaging in that. And what y'all just engaged in was some culturally responsive practices, right? I brought up songs that had meaning for me and value to me I brought up pictures, images, right? That connected with y'all in different ways. I didn't say which picture you had to connect to. I didn't say only look at the airplane picture. I said, hey, here's some things. Tell me what connects with you, right? And then we built groups around that thing and came out and made a playlist. Like we got an 8-song playlist, right? What would happen if you had a 12, 15 song playlist for your groups and your staff and your programs, right? Kids, young people will first of all be listening for their song to come on. That was my song. I picked that song. Everybody be quiet. That's my song, right? And so you're not saying everybody be quiet, stop talking. Young people are more in control of the environment that they're a part of, right? And you're playing their music. Now I gotta say, as an elder, I'm 50 years old. I don't mind telling people I'm 50 years old. These are some old songs y'all came up with, right? And these are the songs that we love. So these are the songs that we play, right? If you're not watching the Grammys or the Billboard Awards or the youth, I don't know, whatever award show to find out what young people are into, and even when you don't understand it, try to figure out and connect with it, right? That's a connection point, right? I remember one of the rappers came out and and they're very adult songs, right? But I had a young person, and it started off with this. It was this kind of liquor. It says 1738, and like he was walking around like saying 1738. So I was like, hey, go to the internet and tell me what happened in 1738. Give me 5 facts about 1738, right? And so I could then connect with them about something that was important to them, even though I was like, you shouldn't be singing that song, right? But me saying that is not going to stop him from singing it. It's just going to stop him from doing it around me, right? And so then we talk about time and place, culture and context, right? So we always remember those things. Does everybody get me around with that, with this whole piece where I've been going so far? Okay, cool. When you think about the hopes of why you showed up for this space today, right? I'm going to share with you my hopes when Sonia and I call him Mr. Manley. We just go way back, and I just call him Mr. Manley. But when Sonia and Mr. Manley reached out, I said, "What are my hopes?" My hopes are that you all figure out how to build some connections amongst yourselves, right? Like you all are experiencing a lot of the same things, but you're doing it in silos. So if you're all using the same data reporting thing, right, and somebody like has a easy system, I'll get it done in 30 minutes. Why aren't you talking to your colleagues, right? And so my hope is that y'all figure out how to build some connection with each other. I'm hoping that you all get to recognize that the work that you do can, right, make yourselves happy, right, and find joy in that, as well as for the young people. My hope is that nobody is having this time like, I don't want to go, right? And so that's really important to me. And then recognizing that progress, any one thing that you can take from this session today and apply and change is progress, right? And so we want to make sure that, like, you don't have to go out and do all the 17 things I'm going to show you today, but pick one, right? I want to make a playlist for the program, and I want to get songs from kids, and I might have to say, like, you got to make the standards, right? Like, no cuss words, a clean version, whatever those standards are, right? But you don't do that until after the song comes in with the cuss words, right? Because we don't want to, like, establish barriers. We want to talk about it once people bring what theirs is, right? I can say, well, you know, I love that song, Come Fly Away with Me, but, you know, like, I wonder if Vanessa's mom would be okay with her hearing that song, right? I'm assuming your pronouns are her, and I apologize for that. And that's what I just did. So I'm making a note, and I'm taking responsibility. So again, right, it's conversation is how we get, instead of saying, no, we don't play music. We don't play music with cuss words in my program. But then I might not fit in your program because I love some music with some cuss words in it. Right? Even as a young person, we all was doing it, right? Let's talk about it. So when you signed up for this, think about, like, why you came, and so that what you're receiving the next slide can really sit in for you, and you can take something away. So what are your hopes for these next 30 minutes? Y'all know we already been together. We only been together 30 minutes so far, and it's been pretty packed. So think about what your hopes are. Because when I went to the culturally responsive practices on Beyonce's internet, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of resources out there for you all that are available. What I did was pick one that most resonated with my personal value system and the beliefs that I have about young people and about systems. And so I can never say this word. So if anybody wants to come off mute and say asset-based
Pedagogies.
Thank you so much. I don't know why that that word just eludes me, because I'm like, all you got to say is what it means, right? Like, again, we make it so inaccessible for people, right? Because we could really just say, like, these are just ways of being that we should really embrace, right? These are some thoughts, some theories, some practices that some really, really intelligent people came up with. And, right, we can modify it to meet our needs. So what this talks about is methods and practices that focus on the strengths. So what are you bringing into the room, right? I heard a speaker one time say that public speaking is like second on the highest fears to death, right? Like, I almost, like, besides dying, I don't want to be a public speaker. I don't want to speak in public. And we speak in public all the time though, right? So again, how do we change those narratives to say, hey, you're really good at speaking in front of a large crowd. You want to be our MC because you talk all the time, Stacy, right? So then that gives me space, right, to prep and plan. Like, I only got 60 minutes, right? What all can I say in 60 minutes? But to your big talkers, right, what is their strengths, right? So if you have a young person that loves to talk, again, figure out how you can craft that, right, into the skill that it becomes when you're in middle school, high school, and whatever. So again, thinking about value and diversity and culture, language, and other traits. I don't know if y'all have heard me today, but I've kind of tried to say young people instead of kids or children, right? Because I've learned that saying that, right, insinuates hierarchy, right? And so I try to say young people because that's what they are. My grandchildren are young people, right? And so, and when I say, hey, you little person, she says, I'm not a person, I'm Camilla, right? And so she's telling me like she doesn't want me to call her a person. So why would I keep calling her a person, right? And so again, I can adapt what I think to support what her needs are, is to be called by her name. So again, just is recognizing who people are and they're coming in. When we think about having high expectations and culturally relevant curricula, like honoring different communication styles, that's really an important way of being, but we got to go deeper than that, right? We got to value community languages and practices. We got to make space for our multi-language folks to be able to use that gift and share that gift with others, right? We got to be able to talk about the practices of the other cultures, of other identities, right? Like I just saw a video the other day where like there's a cultural like hoop practice that comes from the native tradition, right? A cultural hoop, like a hoop dance. And I was like, why was we taught square dancing? Why wasn't we taught this dance? Why were we taught square dancing, right? Because square, so you just like, I just wonder, right? And that's okay. But how do I make space and bring those things around my young people so then they also get that experience and knowing that this is an opportunity, right? Like the hakas. If anybody ever watched a haka happen, like that tradition of the haka that comes out of the middle of Asian Pacific Island countries, right? Like it's goosebumps, right? Like it grabs your attention immediately, right? And to learn the culture and tradition behind that, why it's so important, and why the whole group of people, right? It doesn't matter, they know how to do it, right? From young to old. So again, what are we showing our young people and giving them exposure to? The same thing that they've already known, right? Go to Great Cruisers, go to Michigan Adventure, go to, right? Or are we going, or go to the museum, walk around, don't touch nothing, da, 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 da. Are we being intentional? Go to the museum and find something that connects to you, your family, your history. And you'll come back out from the field trip with 3 or 5 things, right? From each person. Like this thing really connected with me. I didn't even look at the hawks at the zoo, right? Like you can go and figure out what young people want to help them be more successful. Knowing about where you're at, where you're like, how many of you live like are from where you work, right? I'm born and raised here. I know about every program that came through Kalamazoo. I can tell you the good, bads, and uglies, most of them, right? But if we're not from where we spend most of our time, if we don't live where we spend most of our time, we got to find intentional ways to connect with the people in those communities, right? Like I heard one example was from a pastor. Like he's like, I want to understand the Black experience, the Black church experience. So what did he do? He didn't do research about it. He started attending Black churches, right? And then learn to recognize that Black churches even have a vast number of different experiences that you have, right? There's no right or one way to do anything, right? So again, leaning into that. We want to be making sure that we honor this quote by Teddy Beam Conroy that says, what lies beneath the surface, let me get somebody, here we go. What lies beneath the surface is what the traditional education system has ignored. The rich wealth of knowledge of those communities, the ways of thinking and being in the world, the languages they speak, and their way with words. I remember being penalized as a young person for saying ask, right? Can I ask you a question, Ms. Smith? No, you can't ask me a question. That's not proper usage of the word, right? You say ask. So then we engage in saying ask. And I'm like, never mind, I don't even want to ask you my question now. Because now you've taken away my excitement about it through correction, right? And so again, maybe I have a speech impediment, or maybe I have a retainer that doesn't allow me to say K's, right? Like, don't worry about all of those things. Lean into wonder. I wonder why they showing up grumpy. I wonder why every time they get here and it's time for math that they get in trouble. Well, if you wonder long enough, you'll connect, right? Like there's a skill deficit, there's a skill gap. And then you can address the skill gap instead of always addressing behavior. Because they knew they had that skill gap, they knew they had math that day, and they still showed up, right? So perhaps instead of making that young person go to math every day because they're struggling in the school day, maybe they get a job that they engage in instead of during that time. So they're still learning and experiencing something, but it's not causing conflict, right? Because that's what we need to avoid. Or we don't need to avoid it. We need to make sure that we make space for it and know what to do with it after it happens. Okay. Does anyone have anything to add or any feedback? Like, does this seem difficult to switch from like, oh, let me tell you about this expectations thing too. So just the other day I read on the internet again about expectations and using that word. That's a strong word for me. I have high expectations for action and I have high expectations for engagement. Well, what that I've learned just last week is that again, expectation brings in hierarchy, right? It's telling you that I expect something from you when really I can't do anything for you, right? I could hope you do it, or I can set a standard for engagement. So what's the standard for students, right? I'm okay with getting C's. Some kids, some young people are not. Some people are not. They want 100% every time. So what's the strategy, right, to ensure that that young person gets their needs met? And this is about, like I always say, people need individual experience plans. When you show up here, what are your hopes for being here? Why did you come here today? And what do you need to get before you leave? Okay. And that's how we make space for young people. And that's how we engage in these culturally responsive practices, right? Like it's a key word, right? It's a phrase that's come up that hadn't come up before, and now it's here. So we're focusing on it. But what it really means is make space for young people and for people to show up in their humanity and figure out what strengths they have in their humanity. Because even the young person that you think of when I say sometimes you wish they would just not come to program and they show up at program every day, you're getting a need met, right? And so how do we solidify that need and really expand on that need so then they're not causing that other thing that made you think about them when I said that? Okay. We got to give people fresh starts, fresh chances every day. Because what happened yesterday could have been influenced by only anybody knows, right? Because our young people are coming in, they're showing up after experiencing all kinds of stuff in their home. Last night, my husband and I had to call the police because there was somebody passed out in their car at the light. Like all these things are showing up and we're coming in, right? And so then that's why that general acknowledgement, like, hey, I recognize you had a lot of stuff going on and I'm so glad you showed up today. Because today, while you're here, we're going to have this shared experience and then we're going to talk about it. Okay. Any questions, comments, wonders, more info needed? All right. Y'all, next time we're just going to do webinar mode because y'all are way too quiet. And that's okay. So, because not every facilitator asks you to engage, right? Like this is probably different, right? And so it's just different. It's a fresh start. Yeah. So thank you. So, oh, you said a fresh start for every day is such a good thing. Absolutely, right? And it's Monday, right? And Monday comes every week, right? So again, why do you feel, I wonder what makes you feel the way you feel about Mondays? Because if you don't feel that way about Tuesdays, then I'm wondering like, well, what do you have against MON? Right? Because it's the same day, right? Monday is somebody else's Sunday, right? Across the world, right? Like, because time is, it's still Sunday. It's not even Monday yet for some people, right? And so again, why do we believe what we believe? And that's okay if you hate Mondays. I'm not asking you not to hate Mondays. I'm just asking questions about, I'm leaning into understanding what it is, right? Because maybe I have it too, and I just don't know it, right? Or maybe I experienced it before, and this was the strategy I used to make it through that thing, okay? Because we're all in community. I missed the weekend. Yes, like, and, right? It'll be back. It'll be here. Just got to do some things for 4 or 5 days. It'll show back up, right? Looking forward to the weekend and being present in today, right? Yeah, we stay up late, right? But those are choices, right? Everybody got choices. You choose to get money, you stuck to the bread. That's E40, right? Lastly, I want to leave you, I want to share this quote, and I want to know what your reaction to this quote is, because again, we're leaning into some away from, trying to lean away from some learned behaviors, right? Some learned reactions and responses to things, because we've learned to respond to our young people in a way that absolutely takes away their light and their ability to shine. And we have to stop doing that, because we need critical thinkers, and we need people who are going to impact, right, all of the things that we're fighting against in these out of school time spaces. Yeah, E40, that is my dude, right? Like, he just had a cookbook come out too. I'm just saying, he's multi-talented individual, right? All right, what are your thoughts on this quote? I'm gonna make space for hopefully 2 people to share.
Can we share now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I love this quote because I feel like this quote really speaks to me, the old part of me. Like, I'm going to share my age too. I'm 52. So this quote in my 20s or 30s, I wouldn't have understood this quote. I was the kind of person that, oh, I'm going to fix this person. I'm going to help this person. I'm a people pleaser, right? So, as you grow older and you get wiser and you go through life and things, you realize that it really has nothing to do about them. It has everything to do with you. And because of that, it has everything to do with them working on them. So I really love this quote.
Thank you, Angie. In the chat, Lisa shared that we need to only be concerned with ourselves. We can't change others, only ourselves. We are all a work in progress. We are all human. We all make mistakes. We can all do better.
Can I add one in?
Absolutely.
I really enjoy this quote. Also, the way that it relates to what you said earlier about the idea of expectation versus standards. Not only when we're working with students, I really love how applicable this is for staff training when we're working with younger individuals and trying to build that relationship instead of the hierarchy.
Thank you. Right? Because if the young people don't like the activity you have planned, guess what? That means you didn't talk to them about it before you did it. So then don't come back to my office all mad because they, didn't engage, they wasn't acting up there. No, did you ask them if they wanted to build a robot? Right? Or did you tell them the step-by-step instructions of building the robot? Right? Did you make space for them to add their own? Right? So I'm flicking it back to the staff every time. Right? Because I can't do your program. I can't be in your class. My role is different, right? And so being able to lean into that as like, hey, if the young people aren't responding, it's not them. Because generally, young people are showing up in their full authenticity, right? And it's how I respond to the young people that impacts what happens. Don't come up in here with all that noise. Well, do you ever been to a restaurant and heard a quiet restaurant, but we want level 1 talking during lunch? Right? Restaurants are designed, like engineered to design to be loud, so they sound boisterous, so people come in, right? But then we teach young people like, don't talk during lunch. Eat your food, right? Eat your food so you can go to recess, right? Well, maybe recess isn't a high value for me. Maybe I'd rather stay in here and read a book. What does recess include? What options does recess include? Right? Like all of these things, when you're making space for young people to show up and share with you their needs, right? It's gonna go faster, it's gonna go easier, your hours are gonna fly by, just like this hour has just flown by, right? And now it's 11:25 almost, and I gotta get you to the survey and close out. And I got so much more to say, right? And it was important to me to work to make space for y'all to show up, right? And be heard and be seen and be appreciated for just being here. Cameras on or off, right? There's no rules, just show up, okay? And when you take this kind of culturally responsive way of being, it decenters you and your needs, right? And your songs, and puts the focus back on the young people where it truly belongs in the first place. All right. Any final questions, comments? Oh, no, I gotta get you checked out first. So let's check out. So again, what color represents how you're leaving this space? And again, not asking you to shift, but if you need to shift before your next experience, your next things, what is that you need to do to be ready, right? So again, taking it off of me to be a fantastic facilitator and putting it on you to ensure that you're getting your needs met. So anything that I do, right, doesn't impact that. And so then you can't be like, Miss Stacy hate me. She always right? Which is what we want to get away from. I'm glad to see so many of you are green and that started green and stayed green. And and that shift was yours, right? It wasn't mine. Okay. I needed to create space for people to shift if they desired that, and to support everyone else in their way of being. So now, with that being said, and thank y'all for checking in the chat. Here is a QR code to your survey. Here is Sonia shared a document, a link. It's come up as a docx file, Sonia. It's not coming up as a link. But if you scan the QR code, becoming self-aware of some of these things is eye-opening. Thank you, Fayo. Am I saying your name right? Fayo? Okay, thank you. That's a responsive practice as well, right? Like, I think I could have either tried it and failed and made a mistake in public, right? Or I could have said, can you tell me how to say your name, right? And I'm gonna try to get it. And I'm gonna say, give me 3 or 4 times to get it right, because I'm not gonna get it right the first time, right? And so that makes space for us to be in relationship and to say, Miss Stacy, you still got my name wrong. And I'd be like, okay, well, help me out. And then the kid would be like, well, you could just call me Sasa. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna call you by your name, right? Because I can do hard things. And what is that model for young people? That I'm human, I make mistakes, I don't have it all, and I can learn something, right? And I can keep trying. So thank y'all so much for being here. Thank y'all